delivering heavy equipment thousands of miles in days. Massive cargo planes can carry tanks, helicopters, and humanitarian supplies. During natural disasters, this logistical power becomes a lifeline, delivering aid, building field hospitals, and restoring infrastructure. Training is relentless. Pilots log countless hours in simulators, replicating complex combat scenarios. Special operations forces undergo physically and mentally punishing programs to prepare for missions that demand precision and secrecy. Naval crews drill emergency on a quiet morning before sunrise, when most of America is still asleep and highways hum with only a few distant engines. A vast and almost invisible machine is already awake. Satellites whispering to ground stations, submarines gliding silently beneath dark oceans, pilots reviewing mission data in dimly lit rooms, and analysts tracking signals that most citizens will never know exist. This machine belongs to the United States, and its scale is so enormous, so layered, and so technologically complex that even many Americans struggle to grasp its full magnitude. At the heart of this system stands the United States Department of Defense, headquartered in the iconic five-sided building known simply as the Pentagon. From above, the building appears orderly and geometric, but inside it functions like a living brain. Corridors stretching for miles, offices filled with strategists, engineers, intelligence officers, and planners who map out everything from humanitarian relief missions to full-spectrum war strategies. Every day, decisions made inside those walls ripple outward across continents. The story of America's military strength is not just about firepower, it is about logistics, alliances, research, and a global presence that touches nearly every ocean and many distant lands. Consider this. The U.S. maintains hundreds of military installations worldwide, some massive and city-like, others small and discreet. These bases serve as launch points for aircraft, safe harbors for ships, listening posts for intelligence gathering, and training grounds for joint exercises. From Arctic cold to equatorial heat, American personnel operate in climates that test endurance and adaptability. The backbone of this force begins with the U.S. Army. With hundreds of thousands of active duty soldiers and reservists, the Army is designed for sustained land operations. Its armored divisions field tanks weighing over 60 tons, capable of moving with surprising speed across rugged terrain. Infantry units train for urban warfare, mountain operations, and jungle combat. Behind every frontline soldier stands a complex supply chain: fuel convoys, medical units, satellite communications teams, and maintenance crews who ensure vehicles remain operational in the harshest conditions. In modern warfare, the ability to sustain operations over months, sometimes years, is as decisive as any single battle. On the oceans, the U.S. Navy commands one of the largest and most technologically advanced fleets in history. Aircraft carriers, floating air bases the size of small cities, project air power thousands of miles from American shores. A single carrier strike group includes destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and supply ships, forming a mobile fortress that can respond to crises anywhere on the globe. Beneath the waves, nuclear-powered submarines patrol silently for months, their presence often known only to a handful of officials. Some carry ballistic missiles capable of deterrence on a global scale, forming a critical component of America's strategic triad. Above the seas and land, the U.S. Air Force maintains fleets of stealth fighters, strategic bombers, refueling tankers, and surveillance aircraft. Modern stealth aircraft are engineering marvels, shaped and coded to minimize radar detection. They can travel at supersonic speeds, deliver precision-guided munitions, and transmit real-time battlefield data across secure networks. Long-range bombers, capable of flying intercontinental missions, serve as both deterrent and strategic asset. Air superiority, the ability to control the skies, remains one of the most decisive advantages in modern military doctrine, and the Air Force invests billions in ensuring that edge remains sharp. Meanwhile, the U.S. Marine Corps stands ready as a rapid response force. Marines train intensively for amphibious assaults, crisis response, and expeditionary warfare. Their philosophy emphasizes speed, adaptability, and aggressive maneuver. Often deployed aboard naval vessels, Marine expeditionary units can respond within hours to emergencies, ranging from embassy evacuations to disaster relief. This blend of combat readiness and humanitarian flexibility makes them uniquely versatile. In recent years, a new frontier has emerged. The U.S. Space Force represents the recognition that space is now a domain of strategic importance. Satellites guide navigation systems, enable global communications, and provide missile warning capabilities. Disrupting these assets could paralyze modern infrastructure. Space operations involve monitoring orbital debris, protecting satellite networks, and ensuring secure communications for forces on Earth. It is a quiet but critical dimension of national security. Beyond hardware and personnel, America's military power is amplified by alliances. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, binds the U.S. with European and North American allies under a principle of collective defense. Joint exercises strengthen interoperability,
troops from different nations training side by side, learning to communicate seamlessly, share intelligence, and operate as a unified force. These alliances multiply strength. An attack on one member invokes a shared response. Technology drives much of the modern advantage. Defense contractors like Lockheed Martin collaborate with the military to design advanced fighter jets, missile defense systems, and space technologies. Billions of dollars flow into research and development, pushing boundaries in artificial intelligence, hypersonic weapons, cybersecurity, and autonomous systems. Hypersonic missiles traveling at speeds greater than Mach 5 reduce reaction time dramatically. Cyber units defend against digital intrusions that could disrupt power grids or financial networks. The battlefield is no longer confined to physical terrain. It extends into code and algorithms. Yet perhaps the most astonishing element is logistics. Moving a brigade across an ocean requires coordination of transport aircraft, cargo ships, fuel supplies, spare parts, medical equipment, and food. The U.S. operates one of the world's largest airlift capabilities, capable of procedures repeatedly, ensuring readiness for fires, flooding, or combat damage. Readiness is measured constantly, equipment inspected, units evaluated, strategies revised. Deterrence remains a central doctrine. The United States maintains a nuclear triad composed of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and strategic bombers. This redundancy ensures survivability and credibility. The logic is stark but clear. By maintaining the capability to respond decisively, the likelihood of attack is reduced. It is a paradox of strength aimed at preventing conflict. The scale of spending often surprises observers. The U.S. defense budget surpasses that of many other nations combined. Critics debate its size, supporters argue it reflects global responsibilities and the cost of maintaining technological superiority. What is undeniable is that this investment fuels not only military capability, but also innovation that spills into civilian life. GPS technology, the internet's early foundations, and advanced materials research all trace roots to defense initiatives. Despite its power, the American military has faced complex and sometimes controversial conflicts. Lessons learned from asymmetric warfare, counterinsurgency, and nation-building have reshaped doctrines. Modern planners emphasize flexibility, intelligence integration, and coalition building. The experience of prolonged engagements has reinforced the understanding that military strength alone cannot solve every geopolitical challenge. Perhaps most remarkable is the human dimension. Behind every aircraft and ship stands a volunteer service member who chose this path. They come from cities, suburbs, and rural towns. They train, deploy, and sometimes sacrifice. Families endure long separations. Veterans carry stories that rarely make headlines. The machine, for all its machinery, runs on human commitment. On any given day, American forces conduct freedom of navigation operations in contested waters, fly reconnaissance missions over distant regions, train with partners and allied nations, and maintain rapid response teams for unforeseen crises. Satellites orbit silently, ships patrol methodically, and analysts sift through streams of data. The scale is constant, steady, and often unnoticed by the average citizen.
And that is the paradox. The most powerful military apparatus in modern history operates largely out of sight. Its deterrent presence shapes global stability in ways that rarely become dramatic headlines. The carrier sailing across oceans may never fire a shot. The stealth jets may never engage in combat. The submarines may never reveal their locations. Their power lies partly in that quiet readiness. As dawn breaks fully over American cities, commuters pour onto highways unaware that at that same moment, a submarine is navigating under Arctic ice. A satellite is tracking potential missile launches. A pilot is rehearsing a complex aerial refueling operation, and a cyber team is monitoring digital threats in real time. The system is vast, interconnected, and astonishing in scope. It is easy to focus on the spectacle, fighter jets roaring overhead or warships cutting through waves, but the deeper story is one of integration. Land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace converge into a unified strategy designed to project power, defend allies, and deter adversaries. The complexity is staggering, the coordination relentless. In the end, America's military strength is not a single weapon or branch. It is an ecosystem of technology, alliances, logistics, and people. It is the silent submarine, the orbiting satellite, the armored convoy, the encrypted signal, and the volunteer standing watch at 3 a.m. It is a structure built over decades, shaped by history, and constantly evolving to face emerging challenges. And as long as the sun rises over the horizon, that vast machine will already be awake, quietly, methodically, astonishingly prepared. By midday, the rhythm intensifies. In a desert training range somewhere in the American Southwest, live fire exercises echo across miles of open land. Artillery crews calculate trajectories with digital precision, while drones hover above, transmitting high-resolution imagery to command centers thousands of miles away. What once required binoculars and shouted coordinates now unfolds through encrypted networks, real-time satellite feeds, and layered command systems designed to compress decision-making from hours to minutes. At sea, a carrier strike group adjusts its formation.
On the deck, crew members in color-coded jerseys choreograph aircraft launches with movements so practiced they resemble a carefully rehearsed dance. Below deck, engineers monitor nuclear reactors that can power the ship for decades without refueling. The scale of engineering required to sustain such floating fortresses is staggering. Water is desalinated from the ocean, electricity powers everything from radar arrays to surgical suites, and entire air wings are maintained with mechanical precision. Far above, satellites in geostationary orbit maintain global communications. Without them, modern military coordination would fracture instantly. GPS timing synchronizes operations down to microseconds. Secure satellite channels link special operations teams in remote regions with analysts in air-conditioned rooms back home. This invisible web of signals has become as critical as ammunition. In the Indo-Pacific, naval patrols reinforce freedom of navigation, quietly signaling commitment to regional allies. In Europe, joint exercises simulate defensive operations, integrating tanks from one nation with artillery from another, pilots from multiple air forces sharing the same airspace. Interoperability is no longer optional, it is essential. The ability for different nations' forces to function as a cohesive whole can determine the outcome of a crisis before it escalates. Cybersecurity teams operate in windowless facilities, monitoring networks for anomalies that might indicate intrusion attempts. Modern warfare increasingly begins in silence, through malware, phishing campaigns, or attempts to disrupt infrastructure. The line between civilian and military systems blurs in cyberspace, and defense requires constant vigilance. Firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and AI-driven threat analysis run continuously, adapting to ever-evolving tactics. Meanwhile, research laboratories push the boundaries of what seems possible. Engineers test directed energy weapons capable of disabling drones with concentrated beams of light. Scientists experiment with advanced materials that can withstand extreme heat generated by hypersonic travel. AI models sift through oceans of data, identifying patterns human analysts might miss. Each breakthrough represents not just a tactical advantage, but a shift in how future conflicts might unfold. Yet with power comes scrutiny. Congressional hearings debate budgets and oversight. Citizens question foreign engagements and the balance between defense spending and domestic priorities. The strength of a democratic system lies partly in that debate. Decisions about force are not made lightly, and accountability remains a cornerstone. The American military also serves in roles far removed from combat. During hurricanes, wildfires, and pandemics, uniformed personnel deploy to assist civilian authorities. Hospital ships transform into floating clinics. National Guard units distribute supplies and provide security in disaster zones. These missions rarely make dramatic headlines, yet they reveal another dimension of strength, the capacity to mobilize rapidly in support of its own people. In classified facilities, simulations run hypothetical scenarios, contested airspace, cyber disruptions, supply chain breakdowns. Wargaming is a constant process, stress testing strategies before real-world crises occur. Analysts model adversary capabilities, projecting years into the future. The goal is not to predict every contingency, but to remain adaptable. Across recruitment centers, young Americans consider enlistment. Some seek education benefits, others adventure or a sense of purpose. Basic training transforms civilians into service
members through discipline, teamwork, and shared hardship. The process is demanding by design. Cohesion forged under stress often proves decisive in high-pressure environments. At night, operations do not slow. Thermal imaging illuminates dark terrain. Surveillance aircraft circle quietly, their sensors capturing movements invisible to the naked eye. Submarines maintain silent patrol routes, their crews living in tight quarters for months at a time. The psychological resilience required for such deployments is immense, sustained by rigorous selection and support systems. The global supply chain supporting all of this is almost incomprehensible in scale. Contracts span thousands of companies, from major aerospace manufacturers to small machine shops producing specialized components. Ports handle military cargo with precision timing. Fuel depots ensure aircraft and ships never run dry. Warehouses track inventory with barcode systems and predictive algorithms that anticipate demand before shortages occur. Strategic deterrence continues in the background. Missile defense systems stand ready, radar arrays scanning skies for potential threats. Early warning systems can detect launches within moments, triggering carefully rehearsed protocols. The aim is stability, ensuring that potential adversaries understand the costs of escalation. Culturally, the military influences American society in subtle ways. Air shows draw crowds who marvel at aerobatic precision. Veteran stories shape films, literature, and public memory. Memorials across the nation honor those who served. The relationship between civilians and the armed forces remains complex, marked by pride, debate, and reflection. Technological superiority, however, is never guaranteed. Rival nations invest heavily in their own modernization programs. The pace of innovation accelerates globally. Maintaining an edge requires constant adaptation, new training methods, new doctrines, new partnerships with private industry. The race is ongoing, not a static achievement. As midnight approaches again, the cycle continues uninterrupted.
radar stations remain vigilant. Intelligence briefings are prepared for leaders who will read them before dawn. Maintenance crews work overnight shifts to ensure aircraft are mission-ready. Somewhere in the depths of the ocean, a submarine commander reviews navigation charts under dim red lighting, aware that silence is both shield and responsibility. For most Americans, these operations remain distant abstractions, yet their daily routines, safe travel, stable markets, open trade routes, are indirectly supported by this vast architecture of defense. It is not flawless, nor immune to criticism, but its complexity and reach are undeniably extraordinary. The American military story is not merely about dominance, it is about readiness sustained across decades, about networks spanning continents, about human beings operating machines of immense power with discipline and restraint. It is about a system that rarely sleeps, constantly recalibrates and evolves with the world it seeks to protect. And so, as another dawn approaches, the quiet hum of satellites, the steady churn of carrier engines, and the watchful eyes of analysts signal the same enduring reality. The machine is still running, vast, intricate, and astonishing in its scope, poised between the fragility of peace and the gravity of power. Morning briefings begin before the sun fully rises over Washington. In secure rooms, intelligence summaries are projected onto large digital screens. Data flows in from reconnaissance aircraft, naval patrols, cyber monitoring units, diplomatic channels, and allied partners. Patterns are analyzed, anomalies flagged, and risk levels reassessed. It is a daily ritual, methodical, disciplined, and relentless. In the Arctic, melting sea routes have introduced new strategic calculations. Ice-hardened vessels and long-range surveillance aircraft monitor activity in frigid waters once considered inaccessible. Strategic planners evaluate shipping lanes that may one day alter global trade patterns. Geography, once static in textbooks, is becoming dynamic under changing climate conditions, and military strategy adapts accordingly. Across the Pacific, logistics hubs operate like precision-engineered clocks. Cargo aircraft land, refuel, reload, and depart in tightly scheduled rotations. Containers filled with spare parts, medical equipment, and rations are tracked by digital systems that update in real time. A delayed shipment can ripple across operations, so contingency plans are layered upon contingency plans. Redundancy is not waste, it is resilience. In advanced flight simulators, pilots rehearse scenarios too dangerous to replicate in real life. Digital landscapes mirror foreign terrain down to individual buildings. Enemy radar systems are simulated with exacting detail. Pilots practice evasive maneuvers against virtual missiles, refine communication protocols, and rehearse split-second decisions. By the time they enter real aircraft, muscle memory and cognitive conditioning have been honed through hundreds of simulated hours. Underwater, sonar operators aboard submarines listen to the ocean's constant murmur. Every sound, a distant propeller, a shifting current, marine life, forms part of an acoustic mosaic. Distinguishing natural noise from potential threats requires both advanced signal processing and human intuition developed over years of training. Silence is their shield, but awareness is their survival.
On land, armored brigades rotate through readiness cycles. Equipment is inspected, upgraded, and recalibrated. Crews train in combined arms exercises, integrating infantry, armor, artillery, drones, and electronic warfare units. The modern battlefield is multidimensional. Coordination between units must be seamless. Commanders evaluate not just firepower, but mobility, sustainment, and morale. Research facilities continue pushing boundaries. Hypersonic glide vehicles are tested in remote ranges, their trajectories analyzed frame by frame. Quantum computing research explores encryption-resistant communication systems. Autonomous systems, unmanned aerial, surface, and ground vehicles are refined to operate with increasing independence while maintaining human oversight. The ethical frameworks surrounding these technologies are debated intensely, recognizing that innovation must align with values. Back home, veterans transition to civilian life, carrying skills forged in service. Leadership, crisis management, technical expertise, these competencies ripple into industries ranging from aerospace to cybersecurity. The military's influence extends beyond active duty. It becomes woven into the broader national fabric. In congressional committees, policy discussions continue. Lawmakers weigh strategic priorities, alliance commitments, and modernization programs. Funding allocations reflect not only current threats but projections decades into the future. Defense planning operates on long timelines. Ships designed today may serve for half a century. Internationally, humanitarian missions unfold alongside deterrence operations. Medical teams deploy to regions struck by earthquakes. Engineering units rebuild infrastructure after floods. Airlift squadrons deliver vaccines and food supplies. These missions project a different form of strength, one measured not in firepower, but in relief and recovery. As dusk settles in one hemisphere, it rises in another. Time zones blur within the global command structure. A crisis in one region can demand immediate coordination across continents. Secure video links connect leaders separated by oceans. Decisions are made with awareness of cascading consequences. The psychological dimension of deterrence remains constant. Visible demonstrations, joint exercises, patrol routes, diplomatic statements signal commitment. At the same time, classified capabilities remain concealed, known only to select officials. The balance between transparency and secrecy shapes strategic messaging. Training evolves with lessons learned. Urban warfare simulations incorporate drone reconnaissance. Cyber defense drills mirror real-world intrusion attempts. Space operations personnel rehearse satellite maneuver protocols to avoid collisions or interference. Each domain intersects with the others, forming a web rather than a linear chain. Late at night, in a control room illuminated by soft blue light, operators monitor ballistic missile early warning systems. Sensors detect atmospheric anomalies, filtering out false alarms. Protocols demand precision. There is no margin for error. Redundant verification systems ensure that information is cross-checked before action is considered. The American military story is therefore not static. It is iterative, constantly recalibrated against technological shifts and geopolitical currents. Strength is measured not only in numbers but in adaptability. The ability to pivot strategically, technologically, diplomatically defines endurance. In quiet neighborhoods across the country, families of service members prepare for deployments or welcome loved ones home. Flags hang on porches. Community ceremonies mark departures and returns. Behind the global architecture of power lies an intimate human rhythm of separation and reunion. As another 24-hour cycle nears completion, maintenance crews finish inspections, analysts finalize reports, and commanders outline objectives for the next day. The network hums, satellites orbit, ships patrol, aircraft stand ready on runways stretching toward distant horizons. The machine does not roar continuously. Often it simply persists, steady, alert, and disciplined. Its magnitude is astonishing, yet its daily operation can seem almost routine. That routine, repeated thousands of times across countless units, is what sustains readiness. And so the story continues, not as a single dramatic chapter, but as an ongoing narrative of vigilance. A vast structure of land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace, coordinated, debated, refined, and renewed, standing watch in a world that never truly stands still. There are moments, however, when the routine shifts, when intelligence reports grow more urgent, when diplomatic cables carry sharper language, when ships alter course and aircraft are placed on heightened alert. In those moments, the architecture of readiness reveals its deeper purpose. Deep inside reinforced command centers, contingency plans long stored in secure databases are reviewed again. Every major scenario, regional conflict, cyber escalation, maritime blockade, space interference, has been modeled, debated, and revised countless times. Officers scroll through decision trees mapping potential responses, each branch tied to legal authorities, alliance commitments, and risk assessments. Nothing is improvised without reference to doctrine, yet flexibility remains essential. In the vast hangars of strategic air bases, long-range bombers sit under careful maintenance. Their missions are rarely publicized in detail, but their existence alone carries weight. Capable of crossing oceans without landing, refueling midair multiple times, and delivering precision
Payloads, they symbolize reach. Crews train continuously, practicing navigation in contested airspace and rehearsing secure communications protocols that ensure clarity even under electronic interference. Meanwhile, naval intelligence analysts track maritime traffic patterns across choke points, narrow straits through which global commerce flows. The free movement of goods underpins global markets. Disruption in a single strait could affect energy supplies continents away. Thus, destroyers and cruisers patrol with quiet persistence, radar arrays sweeping the horizon, helicopters launching for reconnaissance sweeps. Their presence is both practical and psychological. Space operations teams monitor not just friendly satellites, but debris fields and foreign spacecraft maneuvers. A minor orbital adjustment can have major implications. The domain above Earth is crowded and increasingly contested. Precision tracking, collision avoidance, and defensive countermeasures have become daily responsibilities. Even a temporary disruption in satellite communications could ripple through navigation systems, financial transactions, and emergency services worldwide. In cyber units remain among the most dynamic elements of modern defense. Threat landscapes evolve daily, malware signatures change, phishing techniques become more sophisticated. Defensive systems incorporate machine learning algorithms that detect irregular patterns across billions of data points. Yet technology alone is insufficient. Human analysts interpret context, separating benign anomalies from coordinated probes. In remote training facilities, special operations forces conduct night exercises that test endurance and discretion. They rehearse extraction missions, hostage rescue scenarios, and intelligence gathering operations under simulated hostile conditions. Their equipment, lightweight communications gear, night vision systems, precision weapons, represents decades of refinement. But the decisive factor remains trust among team members, forged through shared hardship. The industrial dimension continues in parallel. Shipyards assemble next-generation vessels using modular construction techniques. Aerospace plants fabricate composite materials, lighter and stronger than previous alloys. Robotics assist in manufacturing, but human oversight ensures precision. Supply chains are audited constantly, seeking vulnerabilities that adversaries might exploit. At academic institutions and defense think tanks, strategists debate emerging doctrines. How should artificial intelligence integrate into command structures? What constitutes proportional response in cyberspace? How can allies adapt to shifting geopolitical alignments? White papers circulate, influencing future procurement and operational decisions. Intellectual capital is as critical as hardware. Public transparency coexists with classified secrecy. Press briefings outline general commitments, while detailed capabilities remain undisclosed. Democratic oversight requires disclosure, yet national security demands discretion. The tension between the two shapes policy decisions and public discourse. Throughout all of this, training never ceases. Recruits continue arriving at basic training installations. Veterans mentor younger service members. Leadership courses refine decision-making skills under stress. Evaluations measure readiness across every branch. Metrics track equipment availability, personnel qualifications, and operational tempo. The scale of coordination during joint operations can be staggering. An air campaign might involve surveillance aircraft feeding data to ground controllers, naval vessels launching cruise missiles, cyber units disrupting adversary communications, and diplomatic channels coordinating with allies, all synchronized within hours. Such integration demands interoperability across thousands of systems and individuals. The financial magnitude supporting this apparatus is often discussed in terms of billions, but behind those numbers lie contracts, research grants, maintenance schedules, and personnel benefits. Each allocation represents strategic prioritization, balancing modernization with sustainability. Yet for all the advanced systems, unpredictability remains a constant. Weather can ground aircraft, mechanical faults can delay deployments, intelligence assessments can shift rapidly. Resilience depends on redundancy and adaptability, backup systems, alternate routes, contingency reserves. As night falls once more over American cities, service members stand watch in distant posts, on windswept ridges, aboard rolling decks, in dim command centers glowing with screens. The hum of machinery and the quiet focus of personnel create an atmosphere of controlled intensity. The mission is continuous vigilance. The astonishing reality is not merely that the United States possesses immense military capability, but that this capability is sustained day after day without dramatic spectacle. It is sustained through maintenance logs completed meticulously, training drills repeated tirelessly, alliances nurtured patiently, and technological upgrades integrated carefully. For the average citizen, much of this remains invisible. Yet its presence shapes the broader environment, deterring aggression, reassuring allies, enabling trade routes, and responding to crises. It operates in the background of daily life, rarely noticed until headlines demand attention. And so the narrative stretches onward, not toward a climactic battle, but toward sustained equilibrium, a complex balance of power, diplomacy, technology, and human resolve. A structure built over generations, evolving with each new challenge. A system vast enough to span oceans, and subtle enough to operate quietly beneath public awareness. When the next dawn arrives, and it always does somewhere first, the cycle resumes. Reports are filed, patrols rotate, satellites adjust orbit, engineers test prototypes, families send messages across time zones. The machine, intricate and disciplined, continues its watch. Not loudly, not theatrically, but persistently, astonishing in scale, deliberate in purpose, and woven deeply into the fabric of modern global stability.